The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is brought to you by Clinica Sierra Vista.
Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
Good morning, everyone. It's 5 a.m. I'm Maddie Jansen alongside Alex Fisher.
We turn to our 17 Court Watch. The teenage girl with the middle name Evil, who killed her mother, is receiving the maximum sentence and will remain behind bars until she is 25 years old. Her mother was found stabbed to death at her home in Oildale last summer. Investigators say Emily Evil Resnick plotted the killing for a month, contradicting the girl's claims that she and her boyfriend killed her in self-defense. Prosecutors say the two teens, who were both 15 at the time, followed through with a chilling, detailed plan for the murder. They agreed on what to wear, came up with alibis, and even nicknamed the knife Buddy Buck.
And we have new details this morning on a deadly shooting in Oildale involving a mother and her son. Deputies were called to a report of vandalism Friday morning on Barnett Street. That's where they found a man who'd been shot dead. He was identified by his elderly mother as James Strickland. She says James had come to the home with a large shovel, asking for lottery money he'd won, but she says that money doesn't exist. The mother says James pushed her down, was about to attack her, but that's when her 86-year-old neighbor stepped in, shooting and killing James. The sheriff's office confirmed no arrests were made and a gun was recovered at the scene. The mother says James has schizophrenia and she believes he was hallucinating during the attack.
And the snowpack in the Kern River Valley watershed area continues to melt at a reasonable pace. This week, the lower Kern River reached its highest flow since 1983. Emergency crews have set up 2 sites where sandbags are now available in the event of flooding. You can find them on Stramler Park on Chester Avenue and Hart Park on Round Mountain Road. Meantime, later today on 17 News at noon with Elena Russ, we're talking about preparing for the dangerous floodwaters and the action you can take today to keep you and your family safe. That is today on 17 News at noon.
In a Bakersfield neighborhood in shock after a burned body is unearthed in a nearby field. It started with a tip that a human limb was seen sticking out of the ground. 17's Marco Torres reports.
This neighborhood on East California Avenue, just west past Mount Vernon Avenue, is known to be an unsafe part of town, according to the people that live here.
I've always never felt really secure about this area. It's not a safe area at all, especially because at nights we do hear multiple gunshots sometimes.
Jacqueline Conseco Reyes' family has been living here for more than 20 years, directly across from where the body was found buried in the field. The sheriff's office says it received a tip about a human limb sticking out of the ground, and when deputies investigated, they found a body buried in the plot. According to the sheriff's office, the body was discovered inside a sunken hole that used to be a homeless encampment. The body had heavy trauma, charred from a fire. The victim's gender has not yet been identified, and it's unknown how this person died, whether they were burned alive or killed and then torched and buried in an attempt to hide the remains.
There's definitely a lot of homeless people that camp out around here. It is just like a few steps away from my house, and it's very disturbing also that someone would be able to hide a body literally outside in that field.
Reyes says a fire broke out about a month ago in the same area the body was found.
Yes, there was a really big fire. It was definitely like probably the size of a house, probably enough to catch the trees around there on fire.
Marco Torres, 17 News.
The 84-year-old man accused of shooting a teenage boy in Kansas City last week pled not guilty in court. Andrew Lester faces 2 felony charges of assault in the first degree and armed criminal action in the shooting of Ralph Yarl. Yarl was shot in the head and arm after he went to the wrong address to pick up his siblings. Yarl's been released from the hospital, but his lawyer says he faces a long road to recovery.
Bakersfield Congressman and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is taking center stage this morning in Washington as the fight over the nation's debt limit heats up. President Biden fired back at McCarthy after he unveiled his offer to raise the debt limit. The standoff comes as the summer deadline is fast approaching, and if not settled, analysts say it could have a dramatic impact on our economy. NBC's Drew Petrimo has more from Washington this morning.
With the deadline fast approaching, President Biden is taking aim at Republicans.
No one should do anything to jeopardize the full faith and credit of the United States of America. Instead, I'm making threats of default if I don't go along with what they want.
President Biden is standing firm in his pledge not to negotiate over the debt limit. He argues it's a routine procedure to pay the nation's bills. He even quoted former President Trump to make his point.
He said, quote, "I can't imagine anybody ever even thinking about using the debt ceiling as a negotiating wedge." I guess he didn't know the new MAGA Republicans he bred.
But Republicans like House Speaker Kevin McCarthy want to use the debt limit vote to force spending cuts.
If you gave your child a credit card and they kept maxing it out to the limit, you wouldn't blindly just raise the limit. You'd change their behavior.
McCarthy outlining a new Republican proposal to raise the debt limit if Democrats agree to cut spending, including canceling the president's plan to forgive student loan debt, limiting spending increases, taking back unspent COVID funds, and rescinding funding for new IRS agents.
President Biden has a choice. Come to the table and stop playing partisan political games. Or cover his ears, refuse to negotiate, and risk bumbling his way into the first default in our nation's history.
Experts warn the government could hit the debt limit as early as June. Without a deal, the economy could be thrown into chaos. Even getting close to the deadline could have negative effects. When that happened in 2011, it caused the credit rating of the U.S. to be downgraded for the first time in history. Drew Petrimo, NBC News, Washington.
The murder trial of Trezell and Jacqueline West is shaking things up. The couple accused of killing their adopted children, Orrin and Orson, after they were reported missing in December of 2020. In a rare move, the jury was taken outside the courthouse yesterday to locations of interest in Bakersfield. Today, they'll travel to California City. The trial is expected to last until early June.
Veterans on Kern County's latest honor flight spent their second day exploring our nation's capital. The group includes more than 180 people, including 17's Michaela Armstrong, who shows us the emotional journey so far.
After traveling thousands of miles, more than 100 veterans got the chance to have an exciting day visiting the Capitol and multiple memorials like the one behind me. And many shared that this experience is a chance of a lifetime.
Veterans saw a total of 6 memorials Wednesday, including the Navy Memorial, FDR Memorial, and Marine Memorial. Some said that it was the day they waited decades for.
It's special. It's something that it just, I don't know, it's just like winning a football player winning the Super Bowl. And I'm running out of words, and I never run out of words in my life.
It's interesting to think, you know, that to hear what other veterans have to say, and to be standing here and to be a part of this is something that I would cherish perhaps the rest of my life.
Throughout the day, going to different memorials, the veterans were often welcomed with cheers and thank yous. A greeting that didn't go unnoticed by many.
After all the years that we weren't honored, to have it happen now is pretty, I don't know, it's just amazing. I don't know how to put it in words, really. It's just it's such a feeling, such a great feeling. It makes me feel like it was all worth it.
Veterans also had the opportunity to go to the Capitol and were welcomed by Speaker McCarthy, who says trips like these make our community.
It's just such an honor that we get to be a part of it, to thank them. And it says a lot about our community that we'd raise the money locally to honor some of the most important people in our lives, our veterans.
The honor flight returns Thursday, and the group is set to be welcomed by family, friends, other veterans, and more. In Washington, Michaela Armstrong, 17 News.
And like Michaela mentioned, the group of veterans returns later tonight. You are being asked to welcome them home with a huge show of support. The welcome home is happening at 6 p.m. at Bakersfield Airport. So, this honor flight is coming back, so let's give them an honorable welcome home. How many sick days do you get at your job? Well, one state lawmaker has introduced a bill to increase the standard from 3 to 7 paid sick days a year. Capitol correspondent Eitan Wallace has reaction from those for and against this legislation.
If you work, chances are you've had to take them at some point in your career. Sick days. But just how many sick days should you get? As it stands today, California law requires employers to provide at least 3 paid sick days, but a new proposal going through the legislature aims to increase that to 7.
We're here to say 3 days is not sufficient. We need 7 days.
Long Beach Senator Lina Gonzalez authored the legislation in the Senate, and Assemblymember Wendy Carrillo did so in the Assembly.
We want to make sure that families and workers are protected across the state.
She says the legislation is key as California learns its lessons from the pandemic.
Nobody wants to go to work and get sick or get someone else sick. So we have learned a lot amid the pandemic, and one of them is absolutely the reality of making sick leave extensions a reality for all workers.
Workers like janitor Leonor Chihuahua. Speaking to us in Spanish, she called the legislation very important.
3 days is right now is not enough. 7 days would help my family to not take that economic impact.
But some organizations and employers have come here to the Capitol to urge lawmakers to vote against the bill, citing concerns it could hurt businesses. In a statement, a coalition of employers, including the California Chamber of Commerce, said, quote, given the cumulative costs and existing protected leaves of absence with which California employers are already struggling to comply, California should refrain from mandating additional sick days and instead should provide incentives to employers to offer more expansive sick day benefits by reducing costs in other areas.
1, 2, 3.
But those here disagree.
Expanding paid sick leave from 3 days to 7 days is the right thing to do. Is it the right thing to do? Yes.
A message supporters intend to bring as the bill makes its way through the legislature. At the state capitol, Eitan Wallace, 17 News.
The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.